everyone, and welcome to Geeks Not Nerds, the podcast. I'm Captain Logan.
I'm Vince.
And I'm Sarah.
And today we're gonna talk about Spider-Man.
I like him. You like him?
He's okay.
Okay, you like him?
Which version are we talking about?
Whichever. Do you like one of them?
Yes.
Case closed. We're done.
All right.
Wrap this puppy up. We got rants?
So we're going to talk about all the various incarnations of Spider-Man, which ones work, which ones don't, and specifically whether or not Spider-Man has a strong rogues gallery. Last week we talked a lot about Batman and Batman's rogues gallery, and I thought it might be fun to do a similar treatment to Spider-Man. Not that we're going to talk about the reboot so much, because we've kind of tackled the reboot, but you know, there's been a lot of talk about, you know, which villain are they going to pick and stuff like that. So I thought it would be fun to just kind of talk about Spider-Man on the whole as a continuity. What works, what doesn't. Let's start with Vince.
Well, I think I'm a little biased on this opinion because it's the most recent thing I've seen, but the best incarnation of Spider-Man to me is the Spectacular Spider-Man, the TV show. It's fantastic.
Nearly good enough writing it could be a movie.
It's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And if they do a reboot, that's what they should do.
Yeah, I think so too. You know, forget all the talk about doing Ultimate Spider-Man. Go to that. That's awesome.
Yeah. You know what strikes me funny is I've always heard people say that Spider-Man's Rogues Gallery is terrible because it's basically a big zoo. That doesn't bother me. I don't care that they're all based, or most of them are based on animals. I don't see why that's a problem.
Yeah, I like Fishbowl Head.
The only one.
She means Mysterio.
Yes, he's now fish-related. How does that make you feel, Spider-Man
some people...
fans?
Well, okay, before we get to Fishbowl Head, because I think we could nearly talk this entire time about that, Sarah, what would you say, when is Spider-Man at his best? And I know you like Spectacular also, so besides just saying what Vince already said, when would you say Spider-Man is at his best?
Well, I really like early Spider-Man. And I like Spider-Man in Maximum Carnage.
When you say, it's like this giant gap between those, right? So I like Spider-Man when he's written by Stan Lee, and then I like Maximum Carnage. So, how far back are we talking?
Probably 70s or early 80s.
Yeah. But yeah, I would agree. There's some awesome stuff going on. I think the art was at its best at that point.
Yeah. And I just like I think Spider-Man was cooler as a character when he was a fresh concept. I don't know. He was just the epitome of the Spider-Man character, the way Stan Lee envisioned him, is actually not a bad character. I can get into him. It was just later when I think they ran out of things for him to do and character places to take him that it seemed that his villains started to be cooler than he was.
This could be a larger issue, but would you say that Spider-Man then maybe is a character that has kind of run his course and we just keep going back and redoing it over and over again?
Well, considering most...
'Cause that's kind of what you're implying.
Most shows that have him in it start with the origin, and it's just kind of like we reboot his character every time, and nobody seems to be able to get past his origin.
I wouldn't say nobody, but I see what you're saying. Yeah.
I just mean as a whole.
You know, the interesting thing is thinking about Ultimate Spider-Man as a good idea of what a reboot is. The strange thing about it is that that's good, and that the characters aren't necessarily the same thing as what came before. The Green Goblin is significantly different.
In what way? I haven't read it.
Green Goblin, as we all know, in the original continuity, is fairly similar to what we see in the movie. Green Goblin in comics is this genetically altered guy. He changes himself to where he mutates into a giant goblin who sees or hallucinates that he sees these little phantom goblins telling him to do things.
That's weird.
It is weird, and I like it because it's demented and crazy and scary, and it's almost a horror movie.
So is Willem Dafoe, though.
Not Green Goblin, Willem Dafoe. If you've seen Boondock Saints, yes, indeed.
Oh, that's hilarious. I think my favorite version of Spider-Man is when he initially gets the black costume.
Really?
I just love that stuff, yeah. And I don't even mean so much the parts where he's realized that he's got the black. I mean, the black costume is an entity and is controlling him and stuff. I mean, just like right when he gets it, is just swinging around with this awesome new black suit. I just like that.
The black
Including
suit,
Secret
it
Wars?
looks cool, but...
Including Secret Wars, yeah. Because Secret Wars was great, or at least what I read of it.
The black suit looks cool,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't think Spider-Man was actually cool until there was Venom.
Really?
Yeah, as far as, that point in comics.
That's fair. Frankly, I was in the camp, not that I was, old enough to know or even born yet when that first happened. Now that I think about it, but when I found out later that the whole idea with that black suit was that they gave it to him, they made it, and then they thought that maybe that they were going to keep that as the suit. Because if you'll remember, when he got rid of the suit, he even sewed himself a black suit. And
Yeah.
he even kept using that for a while, and I liked that.
And then he stopped using that when Venom started terrorizing Mary Jane.
I don't remember if that's the reason he stopped, but yeah.
Well, I think it was because he wanted less confusion about who was the good guy and who...
But if you get outside of
was
canon,
not.
the real reason was there was a big fan outcry wanting the costume back, as far as
yeah.
I know. I think was what happened. But anyway, I always thought it was actually kind of a cooler costume. I actually like it better than the red suit, but that's just me anyway.
I like the white spider design, because the little funky spider on the back always struck me funny.
It bugged me as soon as the tick came around, because it looks like the tick symbol. Not that like the tick has a symbol on himself, but there's a symbol on the cartoon show like behind the logo, and it looks like that kind of, except
Kind
it's
of,
more
yeah.
of a tick. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And so it always seemed like half goofy to me after I noticed that, but that's just me. Cause
The legs are more on the bottom side instead of sticking out the sides. But,
right, because
but
that
his-
looks more like a tick than a spider.
Now that I think of it, that is a bit similar. Yeah.
Spider tick. Anyway.
So, Sarah, you have very often complained about Peter Parker being a whiny character.
Yeah, have you seen the movies?
He's not a whiny character! Come on!
You sound just like when you're making fun of anybody who saw Twilight.
Yeah! or Smallville.
Or like when you were all like, I want the new Edward figure. You sound just like that.
Edward figure! It's crap! Don't like it. Moving on.
Anyway, so, I mean, did you feel like that reading comics? I mean, I know you haven't probably read a whole lot of Spider-Man
In
comics.
places.
Mm-hmm.
But not as a whole, really. I think it's mostly in the TV shows and the movies and stuff like that where you get an actor who doesn't really understand what Spider-Man's all about and then completely butchers it.
You know, we're jumping all over the place, but they really missed the mark with having Tobey Maguire do any kind of narration in those movies. You know what I'm talking about, Vince?
You know, I didn't hate
Like
Tobey
at the beginning
Maguire.
toward the end, but what I'm talking about is the whole narration thing where it opens with I'm Spider-Man, that's who I am, blah 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 blah. It just occurred to me why they probably did that, because every screen incarnation we've had of Spider-Man, discounting the 70s 80s live action show, which was barely Spider-Man, we always had a Spider-Man internal monologue.
Even in Spectacular.
Yeah.
But it works there. To the most part. I mean, it works there. But I mean, in the comics, I mean, Spider-Man always has this internal monologue. We always see what he's thinking, and they did the same in the pretty popular Fox show in the '90s. And I think maybe that's why that's in there. I've always wondered why that's there, because usually if you've got a narration, the idea is that the character is narrating his own story, but it's only on the first scene and the last scene, and it's not anywhere between. And so it's kind of hard to even understand where it is, where it's coming from, and why it's there. Boy, they missed the mark on that. Now that I think about it.
Yeah, I actually think they should have had him do some more internal monologuing, except for the fact that
If they were going to do it at
if
all.
if that particular character had an internal monologue, it would all be whiny. So I don't know. Maybe I'm glad they didn't do it.
Once again, I think this was writing issues more than it was Tobey Maguire. I mean, I think Tobey Maguire had the potential to pull off a more sympathetic Spider-Man.
Like Jim Carrey with the Riddler. Not sympathetic, but good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it took me a minute to even get the connection there. You know, like Jim Carrey with the Riddler.
Well, it's comic bookdom. It works. Some actors just didn't get a chance to do what the writers prevented them from doing.
And once again, I mean, I, just like you, Sarah, I think that Mary Jane is too whiny also in those films.
Yeah.
And so this is more of a writing issue than it is an acting issue.
Yeah, you're probably right.
But I think that seeped into some of the comic stories afterwards, and
Yeah.
and
Well, I think
stuff
all
like
the
that.
Marvel movies had an effect on the comics that came after them.
Absolutely.